Hello flosstube. This is Sunday, June 14th, Flag Day, and I am AM Dreamingstitcher here to talk to you about progress on my cross stitch. It has been 3 weeks since my last video was posted, and in that time I've been doing a lot of different things. As I told you in my last video, I'm retired and thought I might have more time for stitching. Well, there's been a little time for stitching. There's just a lot to do. But today my plans are to show you progress on my old whips. You may recall I had 7 of those and I worked on 2 of them. And to show you the first of my bucket list starts that I talked to you about in my last video, with the idea behind them being that these are the things I would most want to have done if the world were coming to an end and I had to look back and see what I had stitched. I would want to know I had done these. Before I do that though, I know that I was not very clear in my last video. I could tell when I was filming it that I was not very clear. I tried to show you at that time a lot of other purchases I had made between my December video and that video at the end of May, on the 23rd of May. Those were not my bucket list starts. I want to stitch all of them. I love all of them. I love all my stash. I want to stitch everything there is. But that was just me trying to be honest with you about the problem I have with purchases. I think I did a little better in the last 3 weeks. But when I showed you those things on May 23rd, I did tell you that wasn't everything, that I couldn't lay my hands on everything at the time I did the video. So just for the sake of disclosure, I'm doing this to control myself because I'm trying to be honest with you guys and show you everything I bought. I also had purchased these ducks, which I forgot to show you, and these ducks, which I forgot to show you. Well, couldn't put my hands on at the time in order to show you, and this lovely pattern of bunnies, which I had pulled out to show you, but it fell on the floor when I was shuffling things around and I missed showing it to you. And the other thing I bought in that 5-month period, Lord help me, was all of these angels. I don't know why. You know how? Maybe you don't know how. Sometimes you can feel like you're thinking rationally and that your choices are good choices and that you're going to follow through on your plans. And yeah, I know there's glare and I'm not necessarily going to show you every one of these angels. I'm just giving you a little taste of what they are. I felt very rational when I was ordering them and buying them and thinking about them, but I don't know that I was actually remotely rational to purchase all of these. I don't know what came over me. It makes me think of the commercials for bipolar medication, where they will show the individual looking over a heap of stuff that they bought. I really like that one with the dove. That's the way I feel about these. I don't know what the issue is. I really don't. But anyway, now that I'm this far, I'll go ahead and flash the rest of them for you. Sorry about the glare. All of these are things that I bought in the 5 months between my May 23rd video and the one at the end of December. And I think it was the 22nd of December. Maybe I like that one a lot too. There was no reason to purchase all that stuff. Yes, there are 2 of those. Not because I like them especially more than the others, but because I was buying these in lots from eBay. And that one happened to be packaged with something else I really wanted. Sorry, tree. And then this is 4. So altogether that's 26 angels. I don't know why. I don't know why. Anyway, those are the things that I didn't show you last time, on top of all the stuff that I did show you last time. There was all way too much stuff, and that's on top of the stash I already have. So how well did I do in the last 3 weeks since I saw you? Pretty good, because I've mostly been kitting up my bucket list starts, getting the floss and fabric and things that I need for those. I'm not saying I haven't been spending money. That was a lot of money right there. But the only projects I purchased were 2 So I'm kind of proud of myself that only 2 in 3 weeks, and hopefully there won't be any more after that. One of them was another NP Designs kit. Apparently I have an urge to collect all of them if I can get them at a good price, or most of them. I won't say all. I don't know why. I mean, they're still being published. You can go to the Southwest Decoratives website and order them there, which I have done with the ones I wanted most. But when I see them on eBay, and I need to stay off of eBay, and I see it at a good price, I get it. This one, by the way, was open, but it seems to have everything in it. They said it looked like it did. It has fabric, it has floss, it has everything. And my other purchase, which is way overpriced, is a Dimensions Gold Petite kit that I didn't know existed until I saw it on eBay one day. It was part of a listing where the seller has multiple items and you're supposed to click on the one you want and then it gives you a price. So I don't know if this was the price it kept advertising. It kept saying $6.97 or something like that, which would have been a very reasonable price for this item. That's about half the, well, less than, more than, anyway, less than the original price that this would have sold for, I know. The next time I saw it, because that one was sold out, so I couldn't buy it, it was like $25, and I said, that's ridiculous. Gold Dimensions petite kits should only be, you know, $10 or $12. They should not be $25. But I put it in my searches anyway, and kept watching for it, and on the rare occasions that it ever showed up, it was just too darn expensive. So finally I bid on it. Might have been before my last video, might have been after my last video, I don't know. I lost out on the bids, but I had decided at that point, if I can get it for the $25 I saw it and didn't buy it, I'll go ahead and do it and bite the bullet. Well, this one, they wanted more than that. They were accepting offers. I put in an offer to try to keep it in my range. They counter offered, and I compared it to the bidding I had done before, and it was still slightly less than I was willing to bid previously. So, to end this rather long story, I paid too much for it. I paid far more than it's worth. I paid about 3 times as much as it would have been when it was new. But now I won't have to look for it anymore. And if I don't have to look for it anymore, I won't have to go on eBay. And if I don't go on eBay, maybe I can stop buying other things. So this was the petite that I got. Let's see if we can get it where there isn't so much glare. As I said, I didn't even know it existed until I saw it that one time. And I love koi, I love ponds, I love cats, I like cats looking into ponds. I like everything about what this picture is. I'm not 100% crazy about all the details of this, you know, but there's nothing that stands out and makes me go, oh, well, that's goofy, I don't want to stitch that part. But here it is, it's intact, it's got everything in it. Now maybe I can stop thinking about it and not ever go to eBay again, we hope. So those were my 2 purchases in the last 3 weeks, was those 2 kits. No more, let's hope. Okay, let's get to the stitching. You've been sitting there being very patient, so let me show you what I have been working on. First, my old whips. One of them was my carousel lion, and this is the thing that I certainly could have finished if I had just stuck with it over the last 3 weeks. It's from Bernat. I got it on eBay. Yes, I've bought lots of things on eBay, way too many. It was originally produced in 1988. It's kind of scarce compared to the horses in the same series, of which I have, I think, all of them. I have 3 and I've stitched 1. What I had done last time was I had all the cross stitching except the centers of some flowers done and his eye, and it was time for all the top stitching, I guess you could call it, all the back stitching and lazy daisies and everything else. Well, here he is, and what I worked on, I filled in all the yellow centers of the blue flowers and added the French knots. Let's see if we can find some for you. Can you see those next to the blue flower? Where the lazy daisies will go later. That's a pretty sloppy French knot right there. The lazy daisies will go around those and make them into flowers. I added the back stitching to the blue flowers. I've obviously started on the green back stitching, and some of those tiny red flowers have back stitching. Oh, and I did some of his legs. There was a little bit of dark back stitching on half of one leg and most of another. So he still has a way to go, quite a way to go. But I did do some. I kind of put the green down that side, and I did some. I could have finished him if I'd stuck with it. There's a lot more stitching on his body and pole and everything, by the way. I was just doing all the border stuff. But I did work on that. I could certainly sit down and do some more with that and get it done. But I had my bucket list starts in mind. So I didn't stick with him. Instead, I started one of my bucket list starts. But I kind of want to do these in order. So, not the order I did them, but order of old whips before I show you new starts. So I'm going to show you the other whip I worked on first. The other whip that I worked on was my Wrinkled Rabbit. And he's not going to look exactly like that because that's the original print that they based their computer design off of. As you can see, he's from Wrinkled Originals. He's got 30 colors in him. I think I told you last time how many the lion had. It was something like 23. And when I was first working on the rabbit, I was struggling a bit. He's on an old Edmunds scroll frame that's really lousy. The ends keep coming off all the time. I just reached down in the bag and you can pull the ends off. It isn't tight at all. It's difficult to work with. So I usually hold things in hand, like a hoop or a scroll frame that's small enough, and working on the rabbit was just not a pleasure. So I dug out my Edmunds lap stand, which is really pretty basic. You just put the ends of the rods through these holes and stand it where you need to, so it's the length that you might want for whatever you're making. The problem is that these don't grip it very tightly either. One side was holding it really tight and firm, and the other side was flopping all over the place whenever I wanted to flip the frame. So every time I would flip the frame to work on it, I don't know, it just was not the greatest thing in the world. So to work on my rabbit, I actually went out and spent more money. I went online, and you can fold this in different ways, so it might look pretty weird to you, but just to give you the general idea, I bought a table stand that has arms. Okay. It's made of beech. It's manufactured in the Ukraine, I think. But these little arms mean that you can put any size frame on there and flip it. And that without it being attached to anything, without having to worry about that. Yes, the rabbit still falls apart sometimes, but being able to flip him and work on him was such a pleasure. And by the way, I immediately started one of my bucket list starts. Not started, but continued one of them with the scroll frame, because I'd been trying to do it without a stand or frame, and that was frustrating. Anyway, here's the rabbit. I made progress on him because I feel like having that frame to stitch on him with, let's try to get him to the top so you can see all of him, made such a difference. It was so much more pleasurable to be able to set him down in front of me on the frame, stitch, 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 flip when I need to flip, stitch, 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 flip this way if I need to, stitch, stitch, stitch. It's just so much nicer than holding and stitching and dealing with the ends falling off and everything else. So the rabbit saw some progress. He actually got a couple dozen stitches, confetti stitches, in his face. He's got a long way to go there. I think it probably was 24 or 25 stitches. You can't tell. Confetti is confetti. It's too hard to see. But mostly what he got was I had 4 of these hearts done. Now I got the 5th one, filled in the rest of the yellow background, got down here to the border. All of this quadrant of his tabard, including the dividing line up the middle, some of this line, all of that's new. Added some more over here, did some confetti stitches here and there in some of the colors that are part of his tabard. So he's actually grown a bit. I wanted to work on his face and his ears, but I just decided to see whether my frame actually worked. It would be easier to do larger areas of color. So that's why I jumped into the tabard, just to see what's it like stitching on this frame when you're not picking at little bits of confetti. And I was really very happy with the results of the frame, and I got a lot more done on my rabbit. So those were my 2 whips that saw progress in the last 3 weeks. The other things I worked on were to kit up my bucket list starts. And there was one that sort of, one start that kind of snuck in there because it's related to my bucket list. So I'm going to show you those. I think I'm going to pause so that I can pull. Oh, I did have another purchase that was actually helpful with my bucket list. I might say something about that. I'm going to pause you a moment so that I can get my bucket list starts closer to grab. Okay, so I have 10 bucket list starts, and most of them are here in this container. One of them's in a separate box, so we'll get to that in a moment. Some of them are kits that are all ready to go. I'm only going to talk today about the ones I actually started, and I will talk to you about each of the others as I start them. So the very first one I started is probably the one I have wanted to stitch. Well, back that up. I know which one I've wanted to stitch for the longest time. That's in here. I haven't started it yet. But this is the second longest wanting to start one. It is, or was, this kit from Dimensions Gold Collection, Underwater Paradise. I actually stitched this once. This is the leftover bag and materials from the first time that I stitched this piece. And from the day I finished it and gave it as a gift, which was the intention when I was stitching it, I have wanted to stitch it again. And that's been close to 20 years now. I usually measure things by where I'm living at the time something happens, and I know I was stitching this when living in one house and having it framed because the frame was delivered here by FedEx shortly after moving into this house. Exactly what the timing was, because this takes a while to stitch. I don't know how long, more than a year, I'm sure. I don't know, but it was a long time. I stitched it, and I loved it so much I wanted to make it again. How much? Well, at one point I made a copy of the floss list and tried to copy down all of the DMC equivalents. There's a problem with that because there is not really any good DMC conversion from Dimensions, because Dimensions has its own proprietary floss and the colors are not exact matches, and you get situations like this where yellow orange, the closest conversion listed online is 977 for DMC, but gold down here is also 977, also known as DMC light golden brown. Well, the whole point is for them to be separate colors, not the same color. So when that kind of thing happens, you know that a conversion is not going to turn out the same. It's really not going to work. Second problem, before I figured that out or gave up on doing it with DMC, was that if you take another look at this, it's almost but not quite full coverage. It has a ton of half stitches, but that lightest blue at the top is the fabric. So it has to be stitched on a blue fabric or something that looks blue. And the only blue fabrics I had access to were the kind that were in little tubes like this. This is a green one, where the size is 15 by 18. That's not big enough. This thing's larger than 15 by 18. So for years, I'm notoriously cheap about fabric. You know, I'm stitching another piece on apparel linen, so you can tell I'm cheap. For years, I was on the lookout for a piece of blue fabric that was big enough, and I eventually bought one, solely to be able to stitch that piece again. So I got the fabric. I figured out the conversion wasn't really going to work. I just molded over, and I said, okay, that's it. I'm just going to have to watch for another copy of that kit. That's the only way I'm ever going to get it done. It's not going to work converted. It's not. So on eBay, yes, my nemesis, eBay. A couple years ago, I think I might have showed this to you, I purchased this. And so now that I have a second copy of the kit, I started it right off. I'm using the same frame that I stitched the original on, and immediately got to work on it. I ironed the fabric, got it all taut on my frame, got all ready to go. And while I was working on it, I had a magnet board clipped off of my light hanging above it, and that fell down at one point, and I think that's where this dark streak came from, because it was not there when I ironed the fabric. And I don't want to wash it now that I'm in progress. I'm hoping that all the stitches will cover that up and that it'll wash out anyway, because I think it was just the metal edge of the magnet board scraping down the fabric that did that. Anyway, there is the center. I'm always a center starter. I'll show you the one without a coupon of the piece. If you kind of look above that long black and white fish in the middle bottom, he's got a green leaf above him and some dark background behind the green leaf and a little yellow and white fish. That's where that is. This is the top of the black and white fish's head. This is the green leaf. This is the bottom of the little yellow and white fish. This is some of the dark background. A lot of that's half stitching. I'm not crazy about half stitching. That's why I don't have any more than that. So I wanted on the bucket list starts to tell you why. Well, I just loved this piece. I loved it when I made it the first time. I loved it when I gave it as a gift. I've been wanting to stitch it forever. So when I sat down and said, what 10 pieces do you most want to do? This had to be one of them. I mean, all the efforts I've made to try to be able to stitch it again, working out a conversion, buying fabric, buying a second copy of the kit, all of that, it's like, yeah, if you're going to finally stitch the things that you most want to stitch, it's a no-brainer. It has to be that one. So it was my first start. My first start probably should have been the one that got me into cross-stitching, but we'll talk about that after I do start it. Okay, what other bucket list starts did I do? Well, I haven't actually started it, but there is a bucket list start in this book. I showed you this book once a couple years ago, the Omni Book of Winged Things, and I can tell you that one of the things in this picture is the bucket list start that I want to do. I can tell you that I'm a little worried about the size of the fabric because it was hard to come up with the fabric the right size, but it's just going to have a narrow margin. That's just the way it's going to be. I had to go out of my way to get the flosses. Some of these came out of my stash, some of these came from Walmart, some of these came from 123 Stitch, some of these, I'm not even sure. It was hard to get the colors. And they are rather drab looking there. That's the fabric they're going to go on. But it's going to be amazing when I do start it. I just haven't started it yet. So why am I showing it to you? Pause, I just threw my floss on the floor. I'm showing it to you because before I can stitch that one, there's another one in the book that I already had kitted up and ready to go in the same book. And I feel like I need to get that done before I start this new one. So, also, this kitted up one has some colors that it only needs a few stitches, and so if I get it out of the way, I can repurpose that floss for something else. Which one did I start then? It's not my bucket list start, but I feel like I need to get it out of the way to do the bucket list start. It is this, let's use the right hand, this bee. Let's get him up there where you can see him. This little bee with the pink flower in the center of the image there. Him. I actually started him. He's on Celadon fabric. I had to order the fabric. It's a Zweigert fabric, I think. And there's my progress. I've been doing him in hand. That's why he's all wrinkly on this side. I'm not really that much into pink, but he's going to have a giant pink flower. He's ready for his wings to start going on. I showed him to you once long ago. I had him kitted up and ready. But I'm going to do him. And by the way, I'm really enjoying stitching on him. This fabric is thinner than I'm used to. It's still not less than, you know, Aida than stiff, but I don't know. It's just a real pleasure because it's not thick. I like stitching on it. So that's the bee out of the Omni Book of Winged Things, who as soon as he's done will allow me to get started on the other item for which I picked out floss that's in this book that is a bucket list start. So I'll talk to you about that item when I start it. That's all I can say on that. I'll show it to you when I start it. So there is one more that I actually did start that is my bucket list start. Let me just say something about the other ones. Several of them are kits. Some of them needed fabric. This one was chart. I have fabric on order for it, I think. No, the fabric is on order for something else. I think I have fabric in a tube that will work. Here are the colors it's going to have. I had to order colors from 133 Stitch to get that one ready. This one I have started, so I'll be showing you that. This one is kitted up and ready to go with fabric and floss. It's been kitted forever, and so I'm going to start it. It's been kitted back when you used to be able to get floss 5 for $1 at Michael's when they were on sale. I bought the floss for it then. So when I was prepping this a couple years ago, I just went through my stash and said, I know I have the colors because I bought them specifically for that. This one is a kit that is the thing that got me into cross stitch that I will talk about when I start it. This one I talked to you about once long ago. It's been kitted up forever. I'll show it to you when I start it. It's in Just Cross Stitch magazine. I had everything ready to go on that. I just haven't begun it. This one is two similar ones, and they have to do in part with this floss I got because I can't get to the store because 123 Stitch is out of a bunch of colors, because my Walmart only carries a limited selection and so on, because you can go to Walmart for groceries, which means you can go for floss. I ordered some floss from eBay that worked out to about the price you would get with a 30% off coupon at Joann. So I figured this is like going to Joann and getting 30% off your order with the tax. And more than 40 of these are the leftovers. About a third of what I purchased went straight into my start pile, including between my stash and that, I had 66 of the colors I need for that chart I just showed you. What I don't have for that chart I just showed you, with its 66 colors piled up in the bag, 66 colors piled up in the bag, was fabric. It needs a narrow but very long piece of fabric. The model was stitched on 32 count light mocha from, well, it's Belfast, so whoever makes Belfast is that Zweigert or Witchell, whoever makes Belfast. Anyway, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it on light mocha. The pictures online looked kind of dark. So the first thing I did was order, not exactly swatches, these are each 13 by 18, I think, big enough to maybe put a project on if you had to. But I got 4 different colors to look at them with the flosses. I got the light mocha, I got antique ivory, I got light sand, and I got cream. These are all Belfast, they're all 32 count. And then I looked at them with the floss and I said, well, it's going to have to be the light mocha that they said to start with. That really is the best color for it. But I have to get a yard. Not just a yard, I have to get, the piece that's 55 inches long, which is not cheap. Not remotely cheap, and I am a cheap person. I like cheap fabric. So, because it was a bucket list start, I bit the bullet, and I've ordered it, and it's on order. So that, I will tell you more about why I want to stitch it so much when I start it, but it won't get started till the fabric gets here, and I hope to use the fabric for at least 3 projects. There are 2 of these long, narrow ones. I only have one in my bucket list, but really both of them are gorgeous. I would do them both. But whether I'll get that many out of the fabric, I don't know. But it's darned expensive. Whoa, darned expensive. Anyway, that was a purchase to help me with that. One more before I show you the one I actually did start. Gosh, this isn't very organized. I'm sorry. I apologize. Is one that I put in a box just because I ran out of room in that little rack. But it has very bright colors in it. And again, I rated my stash. I rated all the flosses I ever got on eBay. I went to Walmart and 123 Stitch, and I think I finally have all the colors, except for the 310, but I got some 310 at Walmart the other day. These are the very bright primary colors mostly for the other one that's ready to go. So my 10 bucket list starts, other than waiting on fabric and the other, did I say that one that I have 66 flosses for actually calls for 93 colors? The other 30 odd colors for that and the fabric that I'm waiting on, they're all ready to go. So it's entirely possible in the next however many weeks before I bring you another video that I actually will have more bucket list starts for you, but right now I have just one. This one, it's odd to say how you choose your bucket list starts. The fish, the underwater paradise, like I said, from the moment I stitched it the first time, I got this new in the store at Michael's when my town had a Michael's, which it hasn't had for decades now. And I loved it the minute I saw it, and I stitched it for a friend, and I gifted it to a friend, and you know, all is good. And I've wanted to stitch it ever since. The one in the wings and things, I'll talk about more when I begin it, but I just love a bunch of patterns in that book. I've showed it to you before. I got that at Michael's too, I think. It was almost one of my first purchases when I started cross-stitching. I love so many patterns in that book. Of course they would be on my bucket list starts because for years I've wanted to do them. One of the ones in here is the kit that made me start cross-stitching. And I was scared of it because it's uneven. We even have beads and blending filaments and all of that. And I don't think I'm scared anymore. But it's taken me a lot of years to get around to actually starting it because it was frightening for a first project. But when I show that to you, I'll talk more about how I wanted to do that the minute I saw it and fell in love with it. Some of these I just went through my pattern library, and as I flipped through, I saw lots of beautiful things that I want to stitch, but I said, not now, you're not a bucket list start. But when I would come to one that was, it would be like, well, again, a no-brainer. I want to do this. I've wanted to do this forever. I'm going to do this. They're not always as old as that. One of them, the one I just showed you in the box, was my first or second ever eBay purchase years ago. I don't even think I had an eBay account at the time, and I started one to be able to buy that. So that's how long I wanted to do that one. I need to do it. Others, though, I went through and just said, well, this one with all the colors and that I'm ordering the horribly expensive fabric for, I saw add an L&S stitched up. Okay, many of you know that experience where you see something stitched up in person that maybe you wouldn't have paid attention to before, but when you see it personally, you fall in love and you just have to do it. That was the case with that one. And I think the thing holding me back was the fabric, because I don't have a real L&S. The one I call an L&S is, you know, an hour and a half away. I'm sorry for the long pause, but I'm trying to think about, you know, that put off getting it, and I didn't want to spend that kind of money on the fabric. But now that I'm retired and I've decided I'm not putting these off any longer, I'm going to bite the bullet. I've ordered the fabric. I'm going to do it, but I've wanted to do it since I saw it in person years ago. So that's the case for most of these. But all of that is just to say, this next one, as I was flipping through, I said, yes, I want to do that. This one was an eBay purchase. It's more recent, within the last couple of years, for sure. And I was buying some other pattern. You know how some sellers on eBay will chop up the cross-stitch magazines and sell the patterns individually? And I have mixed feelings about that, but it's a way to get some patterns. And I have gotten some that way before, and I think this was a seller who was offering a deal, like if you buy 3, I give you a 10% discount or whatever, 5%, I don't know. But that made me look through the seller's other patterns, and I think that's how I came across this one. And I have no idea what magazine it was published in. I just know I immediately fell in love with it. I wanted it. I was going to get it even if I didn't buy any other patterns from this seller. It's part of my Southwest obsession, I guess. It's this one. And as I said, it's recent. It's not like the things that I've been wanting to stitch forever. But the minute I saw it, I had to order it. And so when I was going through my pattern stash, when I got to it, it's like, oh yes, I've got to do that one. No, I haven't been wanting to do it for 20 years. No, I haven't been waiting because of fabric. This is actually on Aida. It is a little problematic because it's done with anchor. And yes, they give a DMC conversion, but they stitched their model with anchor, and the DMC conversion is imperfect because 2 of the colors, there are no conversions given. This is a 25 color pattern, and you can't really do it in DMC and make it match that. I have no idea what magazine it came out of. I can tell you it's Monument Valley, that the designer is Georgia Ball, that whatever magazine it's in has a very distinctive font for the pages. Maybe it was a book. I don't know. I think it was a magazine. The pages are really nice. Whatever it was, I needed the anchor floss. So that's what held me up on that one. That and the fact that I wasn't going to start all the things. But now that I'm doing my bucket list starts and starting all the things, that one had to be done. So the anchor floss, some I got from 123 Stitch. They didn't have it all, so I was waiting for the rest to be back in stock and waiting, and then I noticed that they don't even list, or at that time did not even list all the colors on their website anymore. Instead of showing 400 and however many colors, 490 I think, they were showing 220, something like that. So they weren't even pretending to be able to back order the anchor floss. So I had tried to get, I think, 15 of the colors from them. There were 10 that there wasn't even a chance on. They back ordered one. Anyway, I ended up, how did I come up with the ones in between? I ended up getting 8 colors, the last 8 colors I needed, which doesn't add up to 25, so something's wrong there. I went to everything cross stitch, so their price is higher than 123 Stitch to begin with, and it was the only thing I wanted, so I had to figure in all the cost of shipping on the price of these flosses too. So they worked out to like $1.21 a skein, but I don't care because I want to stitch it, and so I have started it. This is what I have so far, which looks nothing like the picture to me, because the only monument in Monument Valley, and this one clearly I'm doing it in a hoop, is the sun hitting the edge of one of them over here. I'm sort of stuck in the sky. I'm a middle starter, so the middle of this piece is like down around here in the blue, and I always try to work my way up and then across and down, and so here I am trying to work my way up. I'm not really that interested in the sky. It's this part of the picture right here. Not very interested in that. I want to get to the monuments. But you gotta go one stitch at a time, and that's where I am. And so this is on a piece of, I ordered what they stitched theirs on, which was a 14 count Wrinkled, I think. No, it's Zweigart. It's an antique ivory Zweigart, I think. Anyway, I got that from 123 Stitch. So all this babbling and chaos and making no sense at all, I apologize. But what I've been doing for the last 3 weeks is continuing to try to pull together all the materials needed for my bucket list starts, actually starting 2 of them, the fish and the Monument Valley, which is among my very oldest wanting to stitches and among the newest wanting to stitches. And doing a couple of my old ones because I haven't given up on them, and doing a lot of things that have nothing to do with stitching. So I may or may not be coming back to you in 2 or 3 weeks, depending on whether I start to think, oh, I promised them I'd show progress, I need to get back with them. But I hope to have some more stitches to show you, and I wish I had hoped to be way more coherent about why I want to stitch each thing. Why do I want to stitch Monument Valley? Why is it on my bucket list? That's really hard to say. It's because I guess I'm in love with Southwest things. I've never seen Monument Valley in person. I've seen plenty of movies that have it in them. I'm not crazy about these pastel colors in the sky. all these yellows and pinks and pale blues. It makes me think I'm doing a baby quilt or something. I don't know. I want to get to the geology. I was a geology major. Did I ever mention that? Maybe that's why I want to stitch Monument Valley, because I was a geology major. I have a thing for rocks. That might be part of it right there. It occurs to me. And so I want to do that. I just love it. I love the composition of her design. I don't know how much of it has to do with, they always do a nice model and frame it pretty and everything, but that aesthetic appeals to me. I don't like cocopellis. I have an in-law who does. He would like one with a saxophone, but I don't like cocopellis. I don't like the stereotyped howling coyote silhouettes. I don't like the pastel colors that were associated in the 80s with Southwest designs. I don't like any of those things. But clearly I do like these rug patterns from NP Designs, or Southwest Decoratives as they're called now. And I like Monument Valley, so it's just a split taste, I guess, between what appeals to me that's Southwest and what doesn't. Why do I love the fish? Well, there's something very calming about fish. I love koi. You saw I bought the cats looking at the koi pond. There's something very soothing. Oh, I love koi ponds. If I won the lottery, I'd get someone to set up a koi pond for me and look after my koi. If I tried to do it myself now, they'd just die. But this was colorful and pretty and full of fish and full of life and coral reefs, and I don't know, I have a number of kits and patterns that involve fish and tropical fish. Probably all going back to wanting to redo this one. That's part of my spending illness, is when you haven't done the thing you want to do, you just keep acquiring more things like it. So maybe doing this will stop me from buying more fish patterns. And as I start the other ones, I'll try to talk to you about why I love them. I don't know. So this has been really disorganized. Again, my apologies. Thank you for watching. If you have sat through it this far, you're amazing. I will watch the video and make sure it's not so incoherent that it can't be watched at all, and I'll refilm it if I need to. But if you're hearing and watching this now, you'll know I decided it would do. As I said, there's a lot of other things I want to be doing now, including stitching. So hopefully I will have no new purchases to show you next time. No projects, that is. Hopefully I will have received all the fabric I need to get started on some of this. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about the flosses on that last one, but if I finish up a couple of these, as I said, that will free up some floss that might be able to go from one kit to another, so that'll be helpful. I need to bite the bullet and start the one that got me into cross stitching. I'll show that to you when I get a chance. I'll show each of these to you. So hopefully next time you see me, there will be some progress on one or more of my old whips, and some progress on some of these new things, and probably more bucket list starts. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you if you liked or subscribed. You're very much appreciated. I really feel like I've been all over the place with this, but you guys are great for sitting through it. I just want to share what I like about cross stitch. So thank you very much, and I will be chatting to you again sometime. Bye.